Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and I haven't actually done one of these in a very long time. I think it was at the back end of 2019, but I wanted to bring back guests onto the channel once again, and especially with the winter break and we go into the biggest period of the season, I wanted to get a big guest on. And for the third time this season, Matisse, I'm bringing him back onto the channel. We've got a lot to discuss, probably some stuff we're going to disagree on, but welcome back, Matisse. Great to have you on again.
How's it going, bro? It's been a while. It's great to be back. Like I said, it's good to see this beautiful backdrop of yours again, live in the flesh. So yeah, it's been a while. I mean, I moved house recently, so it's been a while since I've done anything YouTube related. Actually, I just done something recently there for Blues Fans TV as well. So it's good to be back on YouTube. It's good to be back active. Yeah, it's good to talk to you, man.
Yeah, defo. And so much has happened. We were just saying before we started recording that I thought it was more recent, and it actually was the last time you came on the channel. And the last time, I think it was before the Newcastle game in like October, I was checking recently. Yeah. So that so much has happened. Chelsea were in the midst of our best period of the season, our winning run. And of course, we've had downs, but we've also had some very highs since then, some of the big wins we've had. I guess just sort of your assessment of the season, because it has sort of tailed off if you look at the league specifically in terms of results. But within that tail off, there has been, as I've mentioned, some really big wins within there. So based on how maybe you were feeling back in, say, October, how are you feeling now about the campaign and where it's going?
Do you know what? It's very mixed, as you said. It's been quite a tail off. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to go to the Tottenham away game in person, which was probably one of the best games I've ever been to in my life. It was, or probably the best. I think, moments like that, wins over Tottenham, over Arsenal, big wins, they've kept fan spirits up, because there's been a lot of shock defeats that just should never happen, regardless of transfer ban, regardless of who's in charge, regardless of new players in terms of coming in from recalls. Home defeats to Southampton, etc., they're just not acceptable in any season. If it was last season, or if it was under Conte, it would have been bashed. So it's for me, it's the same. There's got to be a minimum standard that we stick to, and regardless of what position we're being. I mean, a lot of people said we're under a transfer ban. We were under a transfer ban, but we weren't shot. Do you know what I mean? We still had a squad there, better than most, the majority of the Premier League. It's not a talentless squad. And whilst Hazard has left, it's still a squad that's been rejuvenated with the likes of Pulisic, a Champions League player. There's international quality in that squad, and I don't like to, say that it's just completely, it's completely free. Everything's completely, free season, because there's still quality there. There's still standards to obtain to, and objectives that we need to meet if we're going to have a good season next season. I feel like these things are, unless you're going to get a new manager bounce, which we're not, because Frank is obviously going to be here hopefully for the long term. We need some sort of, season to season progress and stability for us to actually have success. It's not going to be 10th place, then first, then, up and down yo-yo, like we're Sunderland from, 06 and 07 going up and down the divisions. So for me, it's been mixed. My whole issue was pattern of play. So if we're going to be losing games at home to Bournemouth, home to Southampton, are we actually playing some sort of organised, systematic football where I can see progress in our attacking football and from a defensive standpoint? And for me, there hasn't been enough progress in terms of what we're doing on a week-to-week basis. So a lot of chop and changing, a lot of new formations, a lot of new ideas still, which I think was more of a pre-season thing. And I'm still seeing, obviously, no real plan in terms of attacking football. It seems to be just go to the right, out to Reece James, fizz it in. But then we are fizzing it in. To be honest, we don't have the best, penalty box striker in terms of heading ability in Giroud on the pitch. We don't have our left wing tucked in at the back post looking for tap-ins. They're more stuck out on the left wing touchline. It just doesn't. There's, if Tammy's going to be having near miss and near flicks, why is Willian not on the back post like a Sterling, ready to convert chances? It just doesn't make any sense. We obviously lack a little bit of creativity in midfield, so that that's probably hindering him somewhat. I don't believe Barkley's going to be the solution, etc. So there's a lot of issues that we need to address. But it's been a mixed start, a little bit of a fake position because of how bad everybody else has been as well, which I think has has been shown recently. It's becoming quite fake.
Yeah, I think that uncertainty is something I really want to touch on, because it was something I wrote an article for the Chelsea Echo a few weeks back about this. I think it was after the Arsenal game, I believe, just before the whole game, and it was about Chelsea's sort of uncertainty and knowing what you're going to get from this Chelsea side, and sort of how every position on the pitch feels up for grabs. I know, maybe the first name that comes to mind at the moment is Reece James. You think, he's a cert right back, but even he has come out of the team because of his age, because of the injury earlier on in the season. We don't know what the best formation is. I can't name a best 11 to you. I can give you suggestions. I can say, here's what I think the best midfield three is. But a player like Mason Mount, I think, is so symbolic of this season, sort of the uncertainty, because to me, I think he looks better as a wide player at the moment. He looks more effective as a wide player. I think some of his best performances have been there. Spurs away was, I think, such a good example of what Mason Mount can bring, because he is that erratic, raw talent at the moment. But on the other side to that, it's in all areas of the pitch. I think style of play has been a concern to me, and those home defeats. One of the things I think when we spoke last earlier in the season was how exciting this team were, full of flair, full of energy, full of pressing, players moving into different positions. I think the stagnancy within the team, that could be down to fatigue with younger players who haven't played this level of intensity before, but it's not all young players. There are more experienced heads within there who should be used to this. So I think it comes down to Lampard and understanding what the style is. I think we're still unsure. Are we a pressing team? Are we a team that is more of a, say, a Jurgen Klopp type team? Are we more of a possession-based style, sticking with what Sarri did and trying to move that on a bit? It still feels uncertain, but I think not counter, but to sort of go back to your point about the development within this season, I think we always knew that was the risk of bringing in Frank Lampard, of a manager only in his second year. He still hasn't been that defined and knowing what he wants to do. Next thing I want to bring, and I think we'll both disagree on this, because I made my opinions clear on the January transfer window, and that was something that brought up a lot of negativity recently and frustration. And I know you're someone who was frustrated over that, like many. What was your big issue with the January window?
My main frustration comes from 50% of what I feel like we have to get in order to take control of the situation right now. In recent months, top four, we're in it. And obviously we'll get to Man City, which is obviously going to play a massive part now after all of this news has come out. But top four, I feel like we've been in it, but not controlling it. We've been in it because other teams are playing poorly, in it because other teams are dropping off, in it because we are dropping points and other teams are not capitalizing. That's not how I want to get top four, because for me, it's not just about top four. It's also about how do we play next season? How are we going into pre-season? Like I said, this is a long-term project. So if it was only about top four, Frank wouldn't be here in the first place. It would be about getting someone, more just robust. It's literally short-term. This is what we need. Go and get it in any way means possible. But that's not what it's just about. A lot of fans, and I understand where they're coming from, they would take fifth place, but serious progress on the pitch. And rivals actually playing to their maximum, and we're just fifth unluckily because it's such a competitive league. Not this situation where, like you said, you don't know your best starting lineup, you don't even know if your goalkeeper's good enough, you don't know your best midfield, you don't know your best centre backs, and we're kind of just hanging about in fourth because everybody else is so poor. So for me, from what I've seen in the first half of the season, I knew what we needed. It was a striker or a playmaker, one or the other. If you're not going to take your chances clinically, like you said there, Mason Mount at left wing. For me, putting Mason Mount at left wing and continuing to do our concentrated build up on the right with HUDSON-ODOI, Reece James, Kovacic, and getting those balls into the box and making sure that you at least have two players in the box with an arriving midfielder potentially, but that won't really be until Loftus-Cheek comes back. But Mason Mount really should be playing as a second striker off Tammy from that left. And you don't have to concentrate build up over there because Azpilicueta will start left back, so it's not the most fluid left side anyway. I don't have a problem with us completely directing all our traffic to the right like we did last season to the left if we actually have a plan when we get over there. Because at the end of the day, our players should be superior to the opposition when we get over there. 9 times out of 10, we'll get what we want. It's something that I put out on a picture. It was, badly drawn little shading colours on Twitter, but it was a tactical kind of the way I want to see us go forward with the assumption that Loftus-Cheek returns to full recovery. So for me, in January, we could have acted quite smartly to get a striker. Someone like Dries Mertens, we could have got if we had gone early. My issue is that we got the transfer ban overturned. We got what we wanted, and we seem to come in with no plan. We should have been, it doesn't look like we have been negotiating for those players, or at least focusing on players we can get in January before January is even open. Because if that was the case and we really wanted Mertens, and this panicking nonsense shouldn't be happening in the last few days. It reminds me of Drinkwater. Because if we really wanted Mertens and he was the whole target the whole time, you had the whole of January to have that done. That would have got sorted. No problem. There's no way that doesn't get sorted. He's literally leaving anyway. So you give Napoli time to replace. You put the money down on the table, whether it's a loan or whatever you have to do, and you would be able to get that deal done. Deals can get done if they're done with efficiency and with preparation. And I didn't feel like we came into that window prepared. It was very obvious what we needed in the team. Very obvious we needed a striker because Batshuayi and Giroud were not trusted by Frank, and their performances and cameos didn't justify trust. And it was very clear that we needed a left back because, to be honest, in 2020 to be playing Azpilicueta left back, this kind of speaks volumes. It's not how a top team should operate. It's very imbalanced. It limits us to such lengths. It's ridiculous. Like, if we can't be clinical, we need to create better chances, which means not whipping it in, for Tammy to have to always operate against, maybe three defenders or two centre backs. Create better chances. How many times in the last months have we seen one-on-ones, or have we seen, opportunities for a tap-in, or have we seen good interlinking play in the midfield to create an opportunity, long shots? For all of this Mason Mount number 10 propaganda, he doesn't take long shots. He doesn't shoot. Like, his shooting for me at Vitesse and from when I've been watching him has been so much better. It now seems rushed. It seems, it doesn't seem composed. I'm not seeing him shoot from distance and really, challenge the goalkeeper like that. So for me, he should be at left wing. Take him out of such concentrated areas where the build-up is so crucial, and play your strongest midfield that potentially don't get the goals, but it's not like Mason Mount's banging them in anyway. It's not like Barkley's banging them in anyway, and try and create better chances. If we can't score goals from the chances we're creating, we need to look at the chances we are actually creating. And a left back would have only enhanced. Like I said, Azpilicueta is limiting that left-hand side, so you may as well put a second striker over there. But if we actually had Telles or a left back in general, and scouted outside Chilwell, we potentially could have had that situation sorted, which would have made a huge difference. And in terms of, I know the fact that players need to leave for them to come in, just for squad, not for money, just for squad, depth, just for squad numbers. You can't have Alonso in the under-23s. But there was probably, if Inter are signing Ashley Young, there's legit interest in a fullback there. There was reports that there's legit interest from Alonso and Emerson out in Italy. There's no way you could not have shifted one of those out there. I just feel like we're too tentative. We were too just very, I don't know what the word is, but we just very not very proactive when we should be. Do you know what I mean? It's just this Champions League qualification is so important. I just feel like we could have done a lot more to take control of the situation.
I feel I can understand that frustration. I think I come at it from a slightly different angle because listening to James Horncastle, who is sort of an expert on Italian football. And apparently Chelsea had been in negotiations about Dries Mertens before the window. That was reported. Marina was apparently in negotiations with Napoli. And the deal that was eventually cited or eventually given was a higher fee, and Napoli would want Mertens back on loan for 6 months. And Chelsea were like, why would we do that? A, because we want him right now, or we need him right now. And B, we can get him for free in the summer anyway, so why would we pay that? So there could have been an issue there in negotiations if the club were being proactive. I mean, as we'll come to with Chelsea's Frank Lampard's first signing, it happened out of nowhere, and not a lot of us knew about those negotiations. So it's hard to sort of, when that stuff like that happens, it's hard for me to sort of say with any confidence who Chelsea are and aren't in for. It's very hard to know when you find out years later that we were in for a player and we've been scouting a player for a long time, even though they haven't been linked in the media. I think my issue with a lot of the sort of the harsh reaction to the lack of transfers was this idea that Lampard was somehow betrayed. I think Lampard's tone in the media, especially after the whole game, struck someone who clearly was getting frustrated with the lack of clinical edge we have, which is a clear issue, and we needed to fix that. I feel that it would have been typical Chelsea to buy the likes of Ighalo, to accept Solomon Rondon on the last day, to bring in a player simply for the short term. And I actually think Chelsea not acting was the antithesis to what we've done recently. Chelsea, I look at Higuain as an example when we've been linked to Cavani, for instance, and Higuain's a great example. Alexandre Pato is another example of strikers we brought in who, on the face of it at the time, especially Higuain, looked like a no-brainer. We were all going, we need him, and we know how that turned out. And I think the club were probably looking at it and going to themselves, we don't want another one of those situations where we have to bin a player within 6 months who's on high wages, or it doesn't have any impact on our team, when if we could save that money for our first choice targets, we're not, I know another thing I referenced when I wrote an article on the transfer window was that everyone who criticises Chelsea's recent recruitment, especially that 2017 summer transfer window, for the people behind that window, I can't blame them for being a little bit more hesitant this time and sort of thinking, let's go for something we truly believe in, and sort of our longer term options. And I think if Chelsea do get top four, which could potentially be saved or get an extra sort of safety, a bit of an insurance if Manchester City's ban is upheld with that 5th place, potentially if Chelsea were to fall to 5th place. And then the summer comes and we can get the likes of maybe Telles or Gramado and get the first choice. I think this could turn out to be a very wise move. That was just my opinion. Of course, you get frustrated because the next day, that first half against Leicester proved how, weak we've been in front of goal. And that's the weird thing, though, for me, when we're talking about uncertainty of Chelsea, is when you actually look at the stats, we are a team that creates a lot of chances. We just don't finish them. I think that there is a lack of creativity at times, but that also is an issue. But let's move on to a positivity, which is Hakim Ziyech. I said Ziyech, so I've been corrected. I think it's Ziyech. So we've got a lot of time. I've got a lot of time to perfect my pronunciation of his name. That was one deal that came out of absolutely nowhere. Didn't see it coming. What were your reactions to Ziyech? Because, of course, we had first-hand experience of his talent at Stamford Bridge in November in that crazy game. Excitement, intrigue. What's your feelings on this signing?
Funny enough, was you at that game? Because
I was literally behind the goal. Yeah. I was behind the goal, literally as well. Both of those crosses, the promised goal and then the free kick. I was literally right behind the goal, and just was bemused at how he was able to get that in from that angle. But yeah.
I think was it at the Matthew Harden end that those goals went in for the first half one. So I was sitting in the East Stand, but just the upper tier, right near the Matthew Harden. So I felt like I was in Matthew Harden, but I guess I was in the East Stand. But it gets quite mixed in that corner. So yeah, I got to see Ziyech firsthand, right in front of my eyes, whipping in crosses. So literally he was on that right flank, so I got a great view of it. He was literally on my touchline. The reason why I did take that performance with a lot of pinch of salt is because of how poor we are defensively. If I'm looking for an attacking player and I'm saying, let me now, justify and write the script for this signing to the board, I'm not really saying Chelsea's defence is the ultimate test in terms of, that is the guy that we now need to go and get. Chelsea's defence has been a shambles this season, and I do remember that game he was up against Alonso, if I'm correct. So that was, it was.
That was a night. I remember Alonso was on a good run of form, and that night he just got absolutely exposed. But the reports have said that
half time.
He got dragged, and of course Reece James came on. But the reports have said that because of course he got asked Frank in a press conference the other day about this, and he said no, it wasn't on that game. And to be fair, I completely agree with you. Alonso had a nightmare in that first half.
Yeah. So look, that's why a lot of people will look back to that game. For me, if you're looking at a player, I would never want to sign him on one game. There's been a lot of rumours of Chelsea signing players on Champions League nights, under the lights at the Bridge. Your Williams, your Salahs, and now Ziyech. I would hope that's not the case, and I highly doubt it is. I took not to downplay his performance because he had a great performance, a stunning free kick. which unfortunately goes down as an own goal, but you give it to him anyway. You know, he had a stunning performance. His delivery from set piece from that area over to Quincy, I believe, was stunning. You know, it was great crosses. But again, I must take it with a pinch of salt because he wasn't up against a prime Czech or a commanding goalkeeper. It's a Kepa, and we know Kepa has issues commanding the box. So Ziyech has that ability and that flexibility to be like, oh, I can stick it in a couple yards closer to the goalkeeper than I usually would, and his delivery comes off looking a lot better than potentially it does against a goalkeeper that actually just has the bare basics of commanding a box, because he was just swinging in crosses, and as poor as the defense was as well, a goalkeeper comes and claims a few of those. So I took mixed reactions from his performance there. In terms of the signing, I mean, I was so heavy on Sancho that I started, me and Con CFC, we started a nice little playful war between, he wanted Ziyech a lot and I wanted Sancho, and I think we was on the byline discussing it. So we playfully started a little Sancho versus Ziyech thing, and just like went into our camps and just didn't move. And it's funny because Twitter is such a funny place. Like we obviously discussed and argued about on the byline, and obviously I was so pro Sancho, he's so pro Ziyech. But I have nothing personally against Ziyech, but because I was defending Sancho, and you get this English tribalism. It's at games, it's everywhere. It's like when you defend your club, when you defend your player, everybody else is pointless and worthless at that point. So I went into that camp. And the way Twitter just turned into this massive Sancho versus Ziyech, you know, blow up, was just hilarious. I mean, I never knew me and Connor's account could do such damage, but clearly it is possible with a little bit of, you know, a few words here and there. And to be honest, to compare Ziyech to Sancho was never really, you know, fair on him in the first place. He's a completely different player. So I'm not excited, so to speak, because I still stand by what I said. I still have concerns about Ziyech. I'm not, you know, Ziyech wasn't one of the targets that I looked at and was like, that's the player I want to go and get. I wasn't hung up on this whole left foot thing as much as others. Obviously, left foot brings a new dynamic. It brings a whole new dimension in terms of your passing and how you can open up a team. But I wasn't willing to sacrifice, you know, my belief in a player just because he was left foot. Left foot didn't come into the equation. It was more of a bonus. You know, there's left-footed players like Sané at Man City when he's fully fit that I would die for. Do you know what I mean? Those kind of players. So with Ziyech, it's more intrigued. I think, you know, there's going to be a lot of adaptation. Like I said, he's been in Holland his whole life, so, you know, he's quite an experienced player. This is going to be a big jump up for him in terms of league quality. He's not going to get the same time and space to play his beautiful football. You know, in Holland, everybody tries to play beautiful football. There's nobody really sitting and parking the bus like we've come up against. And while I respect his passing range, he's obviously got great technique. He can fizz a ball 50 yards and whatnot. He's still going to get less time and space to do that in the Premier League. He's still going to have to be more efficient in his output, because one thing that I've had a problem with him is he wastes a lot of chances. If you speak to anyone who's an Ajax fan or an expert on the Eredivisie, while he is a great player and he has great moments and a fantastic highlight reel in the Champions League, it's the chances that he misses, it's the attacks that he breaks up. You know, he's very much a shoot on sight player. You know, he can frustrate a fan a lot, and if he's not having his day, he could ruin, you know, the whole team performance, because he is so central to what we would be trying to do. We would be looking to him to create, and if he's having an off day and he's having a big, you know, shots are not coming off and they're going over the bar constantly, you know, his output ratio, while he's scored and assisted so much, he's missed so much as well. And for me, he wasn't the main guy in the Ajax team. It was actually Tadic. But I feel like that went under the radar because Tadic has already been in the Prem. But for me, Tadic is what made that team tick. He's what made that system. And Ziyech was kind of benefiting off of it. So if he can get his productivity up and his efficiency up to a Sancho, so to speak, and he doesn't waste chances as much as he did, then I'll have no issues. But, you know, I don't think a lot of people are ready for that type of player. If I'm honest, I think a lot of people are missing, you know, what he is. You know, he's not your typical what we've got in the squad now. You're passionate, you know, Tammy Abraham when he scores and da. You saw when he celebrated against us. He's got a little bit of an ego. He's not a disruptor in terms of he's going to cause problems personally in the dressing room. Of course not. But he's more of a Berbatov kind of character. Like, he's very, like, do you know what I mean? He's very off. He's very, like, very confident and cocky. He's very much like this. Do you know what I mean? It's a completely different vibe. You know, he will fling his hands up if we lose the ball, and he won't be your, like, you know, your Mason Mount who's just going to just keep running da. If he gets frustrated, you will see it on the pitch. It's a completely different vibe and steam he will let off. And and we need some of that arrogance in our team, a little bit of flair, a little bit of, a little bit of like that. But at the same time, it's different. It's not what we're used to. So there will be some sort of past change that we'll have to give up in terms of that. We're going to have to get used to that. So yeah, it's a mixed one. For me, what sells it to me and what I'm really happy about is the price. Price is dirt cheap in this market for a player of that experience. I'm going to say because quality wise, he's been playing in the league. Like I said, that is tailored for him in terms of what he can do with time. Champions League was brilliant performances, but they are knockout games. It's just not something that I will just. It's like an international tournament. I'm not just going to take that and justify it for a 38 game season in the Prem. But yeah, he, for the price, that is a fantastic signing. It's very minimal risk. The deal's done at such a good price. If you're looking at who we would have been trying to get in a Sancho, that's like what, quadruple the price, more than that even, especially with agent fees involved. So very low risk. He definitely plugs a lot of holes that we need. We need creativity in the team. We need someone who can go on, just someone actually, a lot of people are thinking he's going to play on the wing, but someone who can actually play in midfield. Maybe in a 3. If you look at a Bernardo Silva and a Kevin De Bruyne, they play in the 3 in the half spaces a lot of the time as well. They've used that option. He could easily play in the 3 against low blocks in the half spaces, and he could create opportunities like that, cut in on his left foot and create overlaps for Reece James. So he plugs a lot of holes. So yeah, I'm happy with all of that.
Absolutely. I think the price is something that I picked up on, and the swiftness of the deal is something that really impresses me. I know that this has been apparently a deal that has been worked on for a little bit longer, as we found out. Chelsea apparently trying to get it done last month, but Ajax obviously don't want to let what they feel is one of their best players go. But I do like him. I think that price is incredible, really. I mean, it really is. It's smart business all round. And I referenced in my video about it that Wilfried Zaha, is upwards of 80 million. And I think you've got a better player here. You've got a player who not only output-wise is better, but has played at a higher level. He's played at the Champions League. He nearly got to a Champions League final. And I think that confidence is something that I like about him. And you do need if you're going to go to the top of the game. I think the thing about the wastefulness there, it's interesting. I was reading some stats and some articles about it recently about specifically in the Premier League of how the best players are the most wasteful. They are the ones at the top of those lists. So your Salahs, your De Bruyne's, and we don't know yet, but I'm not going to say that Ziyech can be as good as going to be as good as them. If he turns out like that, incredible, right? But what I'm saying is I think that sometimes those things, if those players are constantly getting into those positions or constantly being such a big influence, I think that's a positive. This links into something we were speaking about earlier about those back post sort of chances for wingers, and not only Ziyech's delivery and Reece James' delivery on that side and working on that system. And I think of Ruben making his runs into the box that he can at his best. Chelsea, it's not your typical sprinting winger as well. It's a different type of winger in terms of he's been compared to Christian Eriksen, which is an interesting thing. So he can potentially play in midfield. I don't see that personally, just because of who could potentially be leaving in that area and how stacked Chelsea's midfield is. I mean, never rule out anything in football. This time next year he could be Chelsea's number 10. He could be the player who predominantly plays in that position. But all round, I think it is amazing. And Jadon Sancho, this is another question I want to ask you before we move on to the United game, because it is the big player, it is the big money move that everyone wants. Man United fans want, every fan base I think wants at the moment, because he is the golden boy at the moment. And obviously scored again last night, just looks like he's growing and growing and growing. Do you think this will affect a potential move? Because when I saw the name of Ziyech and I saw we'd bought him, not only was I excited about Ziyech, but the second thing I thought was, I think this could potentially stop the move for Sancho, because I think it could affect Callum Hudson-ODOI, Christian Pulisic, if Willian potentially was to sign a contract. But even without Willian signing a contract, I do think about Chelsea have invested a lot of money in Pulisic and Hudson-ODOI. So just your opinions on Sancho and the potential move.
Now, obviously, everybody knows where I stand on Sancho in terms of wanting him. So, that hasn't changed regardless. So there's no point really me going on about that. Yeah, in terms of do I think it's going to happen or is it even probable? I think it still is, because I think Chelsea, this is a long-term target that they've been building towards way before even the January window opened. I think what actually has more impact on it happening is got to do with whether we make Champions League. I think, if we were not to make Champions League, to pay that kind of package for a player, considering how many other positions we need, regardless of sales and incoming money, again, I think they would probably hold off, because Sancho has now maybe not become the priority anymore, whereas before he would have been looked at as a priority, as a winger that we need because of Pedro and Willian leaving. Now it's, if you're looking at a priority bar being red hot, now it's maybe gone to a yellow. And even for me, as much as I want him, we need a left back a lot more now. Now that we've got Ziyech and we've got players out wide, we need a left back a lot more. We need to look at centre back and see, is there a combination there, or do we have to go out and buy a leader, which I think we probably do. I see a lot of secondary centre backs who, don't get me wrong, Christensen and Tomori are extremely talented, but I think they'd be a lot more talented and they'd be getting a lot more out of their game if they had someone next to them, organising them, leading them. They're still very young. So that's an area that we have to look at. For some reason, this midfield balance is still, for me, off for Lamps. It doesn't seem to be working. Whether he wants a natural CDM, I love Jorginho, but whether he wants a natural holding midfielder like a Fabinho, or does he want to play? He's got Ziyech now, so maybe he's plugged the playmaker role. And then obviously up front, we still need to address. And, a lot of things people forget is that, the Euros are on and we do need to offload a lot of players now. We didn't offload really anyone in January. So we still have Giroud on our books. We still have Alonso. We still have Barkley. For me, all players that have to go. And that takes up time to negotiate those deals, to find those players' clubs, to get the right package. We know Marina loves to get a good outgoing deal, a good price. She's not just going to sell anybody cheap, as much as I would love her to just fling them off the books, You've got a situation with Kepa where I'll be going to go and get a goalkeeper like a Henderson, or I'll be going to go and splash money. And really with Kepa, it's really, is he going to be? Do we think he's good enough or do we not? Because he's so expensive and on so much money. I think he's the second highest paid player. He can't really. I don't know if we can really do a loan deal, or put him on the bench. It's very much a stay or go.
And also, there's another thing. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but just one of the things I picked up on as well was that, I'm not as... Kepa, it's a weird one for me, and I don't want to sort of go on to a long tangent about him, but I think the club will be worried about selling Kepa because not only for the fee, not only for how much they paid, the 7-year contract and all of that, I think they'll be fearful, and I would hope they're thinking about the likes of De Bruyne and Salah. And they'll be thinking to themselves, especially De Bruyne, and they'll be thinking to themselves, if we let Kepa go, still at an early age for a keeper, and he goes somewhere and he becomes incredible, because we have seen he could potentially have that capability. I think that'll be a concern. And you talk about the Euros, which is another reason why the Ziyech deal is so impressive, getting it done early, because that's going to free up time, hopefully, for other deals. But it's interesting with Kepa. Sorry to just interrupt you on that. I just think that's... I think he's lower on the list of players. If you're thinking about getting players off the books, I think he's much lower in terms of, I think of the names you've mentioned there. Giroud, I think needs to leave. I think he wants to leave. I can't believe he's still here. But anyway, he'll be leaving. Probably, maybe Batshuayi could leave as well. But there's a lot of players leaving, and getting all of that done with the incomings is going to be difficult. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it's all going to be very time consuming. I think, for me with Kepa, just to finish up, I think it all depends on how he finishes the season, because a goalkeeper, it saves or wins you 10 points at the end of the day, 10 to 15 points. That was always the famous quote that went around, your Petr Cechs, your Courtoises, and the same is for Kepa. I've made it very clear. I've got a lot of issues with his game. I'm very concerned about him. So, he could become a priority because he could be holding the team back, and we can't really have a goalkeeper who holds the team back in the future. In terms of in terms of Sancho, it's like, is he really like a top priority now? I know basically what I envision is that his output is ridiculous, and I just think we are missing that clinical forward line. And if you stick him in a front three, that's closer to your Mane, Salah, Firmino kind of, look-alike attack if you're trying to create that. It all does depend whether Ziyech is going to play on the wing or Lampard envisions him deeper. I would actually, part of me sees him deep because, he's not the quickest 1v1 in the Premier. You've got a lot of fast fullbacks. Do you really want him hugging the touchline? If he's going to be here to dictate play and kind of do an attacking Jorginho role, kind of marshalling of the attacks, you may want him centrally. From what I've heard from a lot of Dutch experts, and again, I'm just floating around on different podcasts, listening to all the Dutch experts and what they have to say. He's a bit of a floater, so I don't see him, unless we're going to allow our right winger to float. And obviously, in an attacking sense, that's fine because Reece James will cover that space. But in a defensive sense, we know how much Lampard likes to have, a runner in terms of a Willian amount he's played out there. In a defensive structure, you could see Ziyech get a little bit lost with his tracking of the left back in such a competitive league where it's more dangerous to allow. We've seen Chilwell score against us, many Robertson. We saw HUDSON-ODOI on the right wing away from home to Liverpool last season at Anfield, and Robertson run amok on him. Having that balance out there is very important. And I think when people look at Ziyech, as much as he is a hard worker, don't get me wrong, I think they forget he is a floater. For him to be on the top of his game, he has to be allowed to drift. And if you look at some of the places his passes have come from, those long diagonal balls, he will operate if he wants in centre defensive midfield just to get on the ball. That's the kind of player he is. He will go and find that ball. He's not one to wait for it. Not saying that he has to be the epicenter of the team, but for him to do his business, he needs to be doing what he feels he needs to do in the game, getting into the spaces he feels he needs to get into. It's kind of like a free role for an Ozil, so to speak. He's not really going to be a structural player. We've had that same issue with a Hazard, not even an issue, but that same idea of a Hazard. So that's why I'm unsure of where he's going to actually fit in. And with Sancho, I know he can operate on the right and the left. A lot of people have got hung up on the left, but when you have a Reece James playing behind you, we've seen with HUDSON-ODOI, it really doesn't matter. If there is a build-up play that allows tap-ins at the back post for a Sterling, aka Sancho, aka HUDSON-ODOI, you will soon like them at right wing, no problem. You know what I mean? So that, I think people have got caught up with this whole cutting inside thing because we don't have any alternative plan. If we had fullbacks that could underlap and overlap on the left side, our whole game could be completely different. Sané plays on the left for Man City, and they do just fine when he was fully fit. So, with Sancho, I think he's not priority. He's not now. I would still be looking at the deal, but every player also has their limit in terms of price, and some of the fee for him is getting a bit astronomical. And as much as I think he is basically he's not one of those players I would say is priceless like an Mbappe, but he's getting there. But I wouldn't say he's on the Mbappe level where he is now priceless, like a Neymar, those kind of players that are literally just, there is no price on them. You basically just have to pay whatever the person wants and just accept it. I don't feel like Sancho is that type of player yet, just because I have been, watching him in the German league, and as amazing as he is, with his end product, his efficiency, as I said, has been top notch. With the amount of chances he gets and tucks away, conversion rate has been brilliant. But also, like I seen with the goal yesterday, I was actually watching it, and my God, the goal was ridiculous. Like, it was something that, as much as I want to give him credit, it was academy defending back there. So so I have to the same way with Ziyech. I looked at him and I was like, I can see he had a great game at Stamford Bridge, but Alonso, but Kepa. I still have to be fair with Sancho as much as I want him to say, great goal last night, but at the same time, that defending was absolutely shocking, and that won't happen in the Prem as often. So your numbers will come down. I expect Sancho's numbers to come down. So yeah, he's like a yellow priority. I would definitely make sure that we're looking to get him, but every player has their maximum price for me, and I wouldn't pay 200 million and not get a Boga for 12. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very intriguing summer on a number of levels to see where Chelsea go. I think based on this week, I think it's a sign that Chelsea are going to be serious. They are going to go for big players, and how that affects a number of areas in the team, it's all up in the air. But that's for next season and the summer. Let's, before we wrap up, talking about the big game. By the time this goes out, it will be Sunday. So tomorrow night, Monday Night Football against Manchester United. It kicks off Chelsea's, I'd say, Bayern, Champions League is a bit of a a side adventure this year. It's not the main course, is it? We're talking about the Premier League and Champions League football. And this Manchester United and Tottenham double really is going to define, I think, the route for where this season goes. If Chelsea can win these 2 games, or at least maybe get 4 points out of both, I'd say maybe, beat Man United and drew with Spurs, it would put them in such a good position. And if they win both, it'd be an amazing position to be in for Chelsea. Just focusing on Man United, because we have struggled against them this year. How much of a challenge tactically is this game going to be for Frank Lampard to not fall into the same traps Chelsea have the previous 2 times we faced Manchester United?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. I mean, there's been a few times I've been very impressed with Lampard's tactical decisions, and a few times I haven't been. It's part and parcel with him being a new coach in the game, not just at Chelsea. He's only second year, as we've said. And even though he's new, he does still have experience around him, and Jody Morris, who's been coaching for a while, obviously not at this level. But it feels like a very inexperienced at this level setup in terms of Petr Cech, in terms of, they're all learning together. And I have no issue with that, as long as I see progress and I see, I take away the emotional side of it. There has to be progress. There has to be a period where they get to the Chelsea standard of management, because at the end of the day, we're a world-class club. We have to be building to win trophies again. It's not something I expect now or even next season, but we have to be building to get back on top. Otherwise, we are not doing what we need to be doing. We're not Arsenal, who are building to be in the top 4. That's just not acceptable. So he's impressed me a few times, notably against Ajax away. That was really impressive tactical performance from him. I think, he was just brilliant that game. Arsenal away, where we were losing, and he decided to bring on Jorginho. It's not something that I expected him to do, but he completely ripped up the spreadsheet and he went again. So he is showing signs of learning and being able to adapt. My whole thing is that, there's a variety of ways you can go about a game pre-game, and everybody has their own ideas, and I don't expect him to get it right all the time. In-game management is something that I expect a top-class manager to be able to handle. You look at a Pochettino who went to Juventus a couple of years ago and absolutely, tore up the sheet again at half-time and switched the whole game around by bringing on fullbacks. This is what you look for in a top coach. Can they change a game? So for me, it's not how we start, because it's a tricky game. We kind of know the ins and outs of how we're looking for it to pan out. Man United are a very counter-attacking team. For me, Man United have no plan themselves, so it's very hard to prepare for United because they're so disorganised, so disorientated. They don't have, a quality way of breaking a team down either. Solskjaer, for me, is way out of his depth, so he has the potential to surprise a team, a big team, because he can sit back and counter with what he has. He has actually a very good big game record, Solskjaer. I think he's beaten Man City twice this season. He was obviously beating us. He's the only team to take off points off Liverpool. They've drawn once, and it was against United. Apart from that, they've won every other game. So he is capable of getting a big result against a big team, because maybe he's a manager who should be managing for Cardiff. Do you know what I mean? He's a manager who should be managing a small team and trying to pluck points off big teams, not actually dominate a league and take the majority of points off small teams and go toe-to-toe with big teams. He's not going toe-to-toe with us. I wouldn't say the times we've played Man United, I've been like, wow, United were, steamrolling us. Even in the 4-0 defeat, we played very well. We hit the bar. We created a lot of opportunities. It was the clinical issue that we had in terms of finishing our dinner, and obviously the defensive issues that we had as well, allowing them to counter, offside traps being very weak, spacing between the midfield and defence. I feel like we've cleaned that up a little bit, but there's still some way to go. So tactically, it's all about, for me, if we don't start well, clean it up as soon as possible. Whatever you feel needs to be done. Even sometimes it hasn't worked for Frank. As long as I can see what he's trying to do in the game to change it, I have no problem. My issue last season was big time, was when we was not playing well, we didn't do anything. It was just same plan. And as much as I love hammering home an ideology into a team, I understand that it needs to be back-to-back, training to training session. If we are literally 2-1 down, and it's very evident, we probably should bring on a second striker. You know, if we can't open up a team anymore, I know they say patience and everything, but if we don't have the most talented squad in terms of opening a team up. We're not Manchester City, so patience probably isn't always going to get us there. We don't have Kevin De Bruyne in our team yet, so sometimes you do need to find another way of doing it. So, I've seen Frank many a time bring on, Batshuayi to go up front and make it a 2. He's trying things. He's trying obvious things that we would all try, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So it's a league game. We do need to get the win. It's Man United. It's very unpredictable what's going to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the intriguing thing. I think it's if we were to win, I think personally for me it'd be one of the most satisfying wins of the season, because it's so irritating those 2 games, because I feel like we are a better footballing side and we're playing football in a way. It's not about being arrogant saying playing football the right way. I just think in a way we should be playing football in the modern game, and I feel like Chelsea need to sort of show that against Manchester United and really be effective. And as you say, whether it's playing maybe a 3-4-3, surprising Solskjaer a bit, giving a bit more, I said in my preview of the game, a bit more impetus to Man United, because Man United hate having the ball. They don't operate in possession. They don't know what to do in possession. So if Chelsea were to sit back and maybe use our pace a bit more on the break, that could surprise Man United and could stop us being, just add that little bit of flair and a little bit of maybe surprise factor to the game. But it's a massive game, it really is, and I do think it's going to define how the season goes, like Tottenham will. But thank you for coming on, mate, once again. Just before we wrap up, give you a chance to shout out where people can find you online, and also all things Chelsea, because I know that's a big thing for you at the moment and a big project, so chance for you to shout it out.
Yeah, thanks, man. So I basically, in terms of social media, where I'm active, would be Twitter, MAH, or Matisse Armani. To be honest, I don't tweet with the frequency I used to. Full-time job and obviously all things Chelsea, trying to combine the two. So, but I am active on there. I will try to put up some more videos on there in the future when I feel like there's something worth really putting out there. But yeah, I tend to have a little comedic style to my tweets, or a little inside joke in there somewhere that you might pick up on. So yeah. Twitter's where I'm most active, and then All Things Chelsea is the publication and blog that I run. We're growing it massively this week. We're bringing in 10 or so, or maybe even maybe here or there more writers on board. Daniel will be joining us as well, someone that's got writing experience with the Echo fanzine, so it's gonna be a pleasure to be working with you. And we're really expanding the team. We're going to be looking to be seriously productive towards the back end of this campaign. I'll probably have about 30 writers on my books, now 2 editors, a systems guy. So we're really looking to come and really deliver some good quality articles. We don't really specialize in news, or now the team will be bigger. It will be probably about 30 writers in total. So we will be able to give you that breaking news, but I feel like that's everywhere. We try to go with more strong opinion pieces, or creative writing is what I try to encourage. Whether it's a match experience, if you've gone to a game, write about a game and really give us the atmosphere, give us your build up to the game. International fans, we've done the same, their experience at home. We try to stand out. We're not really, I don't want to become a publication that just copy and paste quotes and sticks out there into a blog for you to get clicks. So we're completely different. You get some strong opinions on there. We had someone try and revive Barkley a few weeks ago. so yeah, we really do go with some strong pieces. So yeah, if you're looking for any sort of creative writing or opinionated pieces on Chelsea, that's where I'd advise you to go. All Things Chelsea on Twitter. You type it into Google, the blog will come up. We actually have an Instagram page where we're putting up now as well. Same thing, All Things Chelsea. So yeah, that's what we're working on at the moment. And in terms of YouTube, Blues Fans TV, as per usual, we're starting a podcast with them. So we just got a studio together. So we're going to be doing some actual camera work, which will be great. I'll be trying to fit that in around my work schedule, which will be fun. And we've got previews for the Man United game with Flex. It's big club season coming up. Bayern, Tottenham, so we're going to be able to take advantage of all those great collabs, expressions. So it's going to be fun time with that going into this period. So yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of stuff, and definitely go and follow all of that. As Matisse said, I'm going to be writing for all things Chelsea, so I'll definitely shout out my articles on my videos. But thank you, Matisse, for coming on. Definitely we'll do it again, maybe before the end of the season, or maybe at the end of the season, to see where we are. How mad Chelsea are, it's hard to predict that at all, but we'll see. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.